My aunt first told me this story about 10 years ago. She isn't someone to lie, and I believe her wholeheartedly. She was around 10 years old at the time, and the memory is so vivid for her that she still thinks about it to this day. I have always wanted to see if anyone else has had any similar experiences, because I find this pretty unsettling. My aunt was a brownie, a young girl guide here in England. Her group took a trip up to the Lake District to stay at a youth hostel in a remote woodland area. For those of you who are unaware, the Lake District is a national park covering over 2,000 square miles. It's an absolutely stunning place. Go look up some pictures if you don't believe me. Anyway, their hostel was located on top of a slight hill in the dense woodland. At the bottom of the hill was a stream. Bunches of daisies would grow along the bank. The girls would spend their days playing and making chains with the daisies. And here is where my aunt's story starts. She was making daisy chains with her friends on this particular afternoon up at the hostel. They quickly ran out of flowers, so sent my aunt down to the stream to collect some more. She made her way down to the hill and came to the bank, where she knelt down and started picking. All of a sudden, she felt uneasy, as if someone was nearby. She lifted her head to see someone standing across from her on the other side of the stream. She says that this thing was very, very tall. She'd guessed that it was around 7 feet tall, but can obviously not be certain of this. She says that its whole body was covered in a strange skin-type material that was a dense black color. The only part of its body that was not covered was its head. She said that it was bald and its skin was pure white. It had dark black eyes, a small slit of a mouth, and no nose. When she first told me about this, all I could think about was Voldemort. And it just stood still, staring at her. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds a lot like Slender Man. But she first told me this story long before the Slender Man craze really took off. But I can't say that I didn't make the connection once it did. I asked her about this too, and she said that it did bear a slight resemblance. Anyway, she says that they stood there staring at each other for what felt like forever. She said that she didn't particularly feel scared by its presence, but that she felt very uncomfortable, which I can completely understand. I think anyone would feel uncomfortable with a 7-foot-tall, bald-paled, skin-no-nosed thing staring at you. After a while, she got up and just quickly walked back. She continued to check over her shoulder on the way up the hill, and it didn't move. And she didn't see that thing ever again. So, my aunt accepts that she was very young and agrees that this could possibly have been a nightmare of some kind. But she claims that the memory is so vivid and so real that she finds it hard to believe that she dreamed it all up. Anyway, I wanted to share this story with you all here and see if anyone else has experienced anything similar. Do you have any ideas as to what this could be? I'd love to hear what you guys think. I grew up in a house built back in 1959 and 1960. My parents picked it up in 1995, where they lived for a full year before adopting me in 96. There is no public information on who owned the home before my parents moved in, but the 35 to 36 year period of time before they bought it lends itself to having at least 1 to 2 previous owners, and my parents never talked about who they bought it from. Anyway, as a kid, I was pretty adventurous. I would go exploring in the attic and even found a secondary attic, not connected to the main one, accessible through a hatch in the spare bedroom. As a kid, I never really went up there because there wasn't anything interesting, or so I think. Maybe I'll revisit it next time I'm round. The one place that I did not venture, however, was the crawl space. We have a finished basement with a door leading to the crawl space, which is about 4-ish feet tall. I'm 5'11", and I have to crouch like Master Chief to walk around it. Now, I already didn't like the basement very much, and I absolutely hated being down there alone at night. Straight up bolted up the stairs when I had to turn the lights off when I'd cash out for the night. In fact, my dog wasn't a big fan either. I'd rarely catch him down there. But one day, I was feeling ballsy, I guess, and I decided to go exploring when I got home from grade school before my parents got home from work. I opened up the door to the crawl space, and my dog, Travis, waited anxiously for me at the entrance. Neither him nor my current dog, Rico, ever went in there, or even went near that door. Well, I made my way towards the back of the then gravel-laid flooring, past all the storage bins my parents had placed in there, and rounded a corner by a moderately sized sinkhole. The gravel was lower there for some reason, I don't know. What I found was a chair and a mattress pad, with a blanket folded up at its foot, like one might find at a pads facility. Well, I noped the fuck out of there and shut the door. When my mum got home, I told her about it, so she went in there, not believing me, and upon exiting, looked as bewildered as I was. When Dad got home, he did the same. I asked if they knew anything about it, and they said that they'd never seen those things before, that they did not know how they got there, and that they had admittedly not been back to that part of the crawl space in years. They removed the items, and we just never really spoke about it again. Thinking back about all this stuff, growing up there, I had often noticed some weird things too. Objects in my room, moving from the place that I left them. I figured that my parents just lied when they said they hadn't gone in my room or moved anything, which is fair enough, I guess. Stranger though, I heard shuffling coming from the kitchen, which I chalked up to my dog at the time, until he had passed and I continued to hear it from time to time. I would hear cabinet doors opening, with the distinctive magnetic click and creaking of their hinges swinging open slowly. I heard plates rattle or slide. I just figured that maybe one of my parents were up, moving around, getting a snack and such. Only I am a night owl and would stay up for later than my parents, reading in my room at the end of the upstairs hallway, their room being right by the wooden stairs. Now, for the, in my opinion, freakiest part, that hallway creaks under the weight of a human walking on it. I, of course, had learned to navigate it without the creaks, but the sound of my mother or father walking down it, it was undeniable. The stairs were even more challenging too, as I would have to get on all fours and equally distribute my weight for them not to creak. Well, during the silent hours of the night, when I was up far past when I should have gone to bed, and when my parents had already been asleep for hours, I would hear that rustling, those hinges opening, those plates slide, but never the fridge opening, strangely enough. But even more scary, though, were the footsteps in the hallway. I would hear the distinct sound of someone walking with shoes or boots on the wooden floorboards, but the boards wouldn't creak. Granted, my room is at the end of the hallway next to the bathroom. I would often explain it away as my mum or dad coming down to use the bathroom late at night, which sometimes it was, as the light would turn on, and I'd hear them use the bathroom and flush, and the light would go off and I'd hear them return to their room. Only sometimes the light, it wouldn't go on, and the footsteps would stop at my door. And sometimes I'd even hear the slightest rattle of the doorknob being touched, but never twisted nor opened. I'd become hyper-aware, my heart racing and my hair standing on end. And in those cases, I'd never hear footsteps return to my parents' end of the hallway, which was really strange. my dogs have also acted strangely from time to time, frequently sitting bolt upright and staring just at nothing. Recently, I had an experience. It's possibly a sleep paralysis-induced nightmare, but it felt as though I had a real physical sensation leading up to it. The experience happened when Rico and I were cuddling on the bed until he stood bolt upright, staring at the doorway. I grabbed his collar and blinked, only to open my eyes and see a white figure hovering with no legs in the frame. He got anxious and began to try and escape my grasp, and as I blinked again, the figure began to float towards me. I decided I wasn't going to take him down with me, so I let him go and he sprinted out of the room. I blink again and I see nothing but a misty white, unidentifiable face, at which point I just clamp my eyes shut. I feel my face turn to ice as I just black out. Waking up hours later in the late morning after the sun had already risen, I laid there thinking about what the hell just happened. The only other memorable occurrence I've had is in the basement, and this time I was definitely fully awake. I had brought my electric bass and its tripod into the basement with me to play while I was bored. It was mid-afternoon, with nobody else downstairs, not even my dog. I was sitting in a chair on the other side of the room, watching TV, when out of nowhere, the tripod and the bass and everything just simply fell over, like someone had strongly tapped the head of the bass on the side or something. Being accustomed to all sorts of weird shit happening, I just simply walked over and stood it back up and said aloud, "Listen man, you can fuck with me all you want, but don't touch my instruments, okay?" And never before, nor since then, have I had any problems with my instruments. I do have a few more stories, but they're less impressive or more personally upsetting than I'd like to share.